All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our first panel of the day, which I think will be a very provocative one with conversations. I'm not going to reintroduce our panelists. You've had their illustrious careers read out. So let's go straight into what we are here about. We are gathered here in this very historic moment, I think. AI is not coming. AI is here. It has arrived. It's also arrived like a thunder that we usually have up here in Gauteng in the afternoons on summer days. It's arrived in the boardrooms. It has arrived in credit departments, in risk committees, in customer engagement centers, and in every corner of the financial services sector. Now, the question before us is whether AI will change the future of work. I think it has already done that, so that is done. The question is then, are we leading the change or are we being led by it? So the panel before you represents some of the sharpest minds navigating this question right now, from the frontiers of AI deployment to the risk framework that governs it, to the human beings who must live and work inside these systems each and every day. I was talking to one of our panelists who was saying the question he's worried about, not even worried, he gets all the time is, will I still have a job? I'm sure we'll get an answer in the next 40 minutes. We've broken it into 3 segments. The first one will be talking about the AI impact and the landscape. The second will talk to people, culture, and then the adoption thereof, and the governance strategy and the road ahead. So, without any further delay, let us get into it. The first question I will send to Alex. But we begin where every boardroom conversation should begin. With evidence, with results, with what is actually working and where. In a world awash with AI hype and pilot fatigue, the organizations separating signal from noise are the ones focused on measurable impact and on their people. So Alex, which business functions are seeing the greatest measurable impact from AI today, and why is that the case?
Yeah, thanks, Thabang. Morning, everyone. Really, it's any business function where the work is information heavy, repetitive, and rules based. AI is already making a measurable impact. And I think the right question to ask in terms of what business functions can AI be applied to is, it's not really where can we use AI, but where does the work look data-driven, process-driven, and that can inform that. But really, yeah, across all business functions, I mean, we'll be here all day if we were to list them, but customer services and support with AI chatbots, AI voice automation, software engineering and IT in terms of coding, excuse me, automated testing, debugging, huge applications there. In finance and risk, in better risk detection, pattern detection, anomalies, and then also in financial reporting and narrative generation, great sort of productivity gains and efficiencies. In terms of knowledge work and productivity, that spans all business functions. And I think we've all used Copilot's AI tools that are embedded in Outlook and Excel and all your office applications, in Microsoft Teams, generation of meeting notes, etc., document drafting, and then one that is also quite general, but AI-enabled research and synthesis, from competitor analyses to business cases, position papers, whatever it might be, just improving hugely the productivity or the time to do that, and taking some of that sort of mental effort away and allowing you to use insights and decision and judgment.
That's fascinating, Alex, because the tension I hear everywhere is this: leaders want the productivity gains, but they are walking a tightrope. One wrong communication or one wrong move in communication, and your best people think they are working themselves out of a job, right? And so how are you currently using AI to improve employee productivity without creating the fear around job replacement?
Yeah, it's a very, very tricky one, because how do you talk about productivity gains and efficiency gains without the implication or the connotation of headcount reductions? And I think key is how you position AI, more as augmenting rather than pure automation. It's a tool that can uplift people's functions and day-to-day work to make it more insights-driven, more judgment. I think the important point is also that AI doesn't remove the need for human judgment, so there is still a role there and importance of human involvement, but also then highlighting the pain relief use case of AI. So I think when you can convey that AI will remove the drudgery from your day-to-day work, how it can improve your work, allow you again to focus more on strategic insights, decision-making, then it's seen as a positive rather than a threat. And then lastly, important is to bring employees along the journey, ensure they're trained up and are able to apply AI. And then again, they feel like it is a benefit and it's transforming the nature of their work rather than replacing.
Yeah, no, thanks. But now let's be honest. The BFSI sector doesn't operate at the speed of the Silicon Valley, right? You are operating in one of the most regulated environments on this planet. And that means every AI deployment comes with a very real conversation to govern now. In a highly regulated industry like banking, or the industries like banking and finance, how do you balance AI innovation with compliance and risk management in daily operations?
Can you guys hear me? Yeah, it's working. The answer when someone says, can you hear me, is you say no, right? Yeah, it's an interesting question, this, in a regulated environment like we are. An uncommon angle from my perspective really is actually regulation isn't potentially the brake on AI innovation. It can be the engineering standard. I'll go into that a little bit now. There's a phrase I've heard in the past from Silicon Valley, which is effectively move fast and break things. In a banking environment, it should be slightly differently. If you move fast and break things, then the SARB will come knocking, right? So I think maybe let's kill some myths right up front. Compliance and innovation aren't opposites. In fact, I'd maybe argue that the most dangerous thing you can do with AI is to kind of develop without the compliance lens up front. There's a lot of guidance out there that says use AI, be innovative, be creative, move fast, and it assumes you can, right, in your environment. The advice sounds reasonable until you try and go to a CRO and say, this is my AI black box. What do you think they're going to say around that? I see Al giving me the side eye there. There's some data that should make a lot of us in this environment a little bit uncomfortable. So 67% of banking and financial enterprises say regulatory requirements slow AI development. And the medium AI proof time in our industry is around 18 months versus about 4 months in e-commerce. So the instinct is to see regulation as the enemy of speed. And that's not something new, right? I think that's been in place for a long time. When you look at technologists who want to develop, they want to go into into their quiet room like a mushroom, and they want to produce something and then come out of it. So maybe a little bit of a reframe around compliance as an accelerator. The way I think of it is kind of like Formula One. So if you think about a Formula One car, while they're the fastest cars in the world, they are very heavily regulated, right? They're regulated from everything from kind of tire pressure to fuel consumption and everything around that. But the constraints force the precision engineering right up front. And I think if you can take that analogy and apply it to banking, where right up front you want to try and explain to the regulators or to the risk officers what you're doing, it doesn't slow you down, right? It forces you to build better AI so people can actually trust and use the AI right up front. So potentially the real risk is actually regulation isn't slowing you down. It's what kind of I ever look at as compliance retrofitting. And again, it's not something that is new where we are now. You build something and then everybody says that's great, and then they go, okay, cool, we need an audit trail and we need to make sure that everything is correct. And then you retrofit that afterwards. And often you can end up then delivering something slower than if you're using the new technologies. There's an interesting story from an IKEA perspective. A couple of years ago, they built a chatbot, and the chatbot functioned quite well. And effectively, they was answering kind of up to about 50% of the client queries in the call center. And then they looked and said, what is the chatbot giving us and not answering? And effectively, the calls that were going to humans, people were asking the people in the call center, will my sofa look good in my lounge? And they realized that actually the calls going to humans were more about interior design than customer complaints. And they retrained their client contact center to be effectively interior designers. And they changed the cost center to a profit center very quickly. And that's an interesting way to look at it. So, I mean, as I said, I think we don't balance innovation against compliance. We've got to build them together. And in banking, we need to treat regulation as in kind of a standard up front and not a speed bump. So it's one of those cases where I think the tortoise will beat the hare when the hare's got to go back and explain themselves to the regulator.
Yeah. I was intrigued by your motorsport analogy there, and I was just picturing it driving in the streets of Alex. But yeah.
You can only be intrigued if you're a McLaren fan. A Mercedes fan at the moment.
Yeah. But what role should CIOs and CROs and business heads play in ensuring that AI transformation is genuine, aligned across people, process, and technology?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, right? We're all learning, right, worldwide. I'm not just saying us in the room. We're all learning about what this tech can do for us. And no one has the answers for everything at the moment. And I don't think we've got a tech problem. We've got kind of a leadership problem in technology, and it's just because we're in kind of an R&D phase, right? So maybe some stats again, they might ruin some of your mornings. There are close to 90% of organizations worldwide experimenting in AI. I don't think that's new to anyone. But close to 80% at the moment are saying there's no meaningful bottom line impact, right? So only about 5% of what we're experimenting with are actually showing kind of value. So we've got a lot of people doing AI, but almost no one getting AI. And it's not a technology failure. It's something that we need to learn about and we need to get better at, right? So there was a research paper recently where 94% of people say AI is easy to use and 98% find it valuable, but then why aren't our kind of ROI numbers moving? And I think there's a difference between the AI that we're using in our personal lives, where there's, back to my previous question and answer, there's not really a lot of governance you're worried about it. If you're asking the AI whether those shoes will look good with that dress, you don't need a lot of governance, right? But the numbers are mostly perception internal to organizations, not behavior. So the real ROI is going to come through when we start looking at how people work differently and how we're actually changing operational, organizational design and models. And that's a tough question that I think we all need to start coming to terms with quite quickly, because there's obviously a people impact to that.
Yeah.
And it kind of requires three things inside an organization, right? The way it was before is kind of the CIO would build it, the CRO would govern it, and the business head would kind of demand the change. But if you do things in silos, then effectively you're getting licenses, policy, and a launch email, nothing more. Someone asked me recently why people were resisting some tools. We were talking about this morning, actually. And then, kind of when you ask a little bit more deeper and more probing questions, you realize that there's kind of no safe space to experiment enough. And that kind of old adage around fail fast and fail forward really applies here. The R&D is going to be so important for us to kind of move this forward, move the technology forward. So kind of what I see changing a little bit is first of all, the CIO is going to be kind of the orchestrator. What I mean by that is often in technology, you get to see an entire organization, right? You're spending time integrating technology solutions into one another, so you kind of get an understanding of how the organization works. And then you're seeing the CRO as kind of the guardrails designer, the person who's kind of building the rails that the train can move forward on. And then finally, kind of the business or the product head is the value translator. And that person needs to look at kind of not where we are using AI, but where it's changing kind of our cost to serve, our client acquisition, time to revenue, those kind of things. And then maybe quickly around Blackstone, right? So Blackstone published a report where their legal and compliance team were reviewing 25,000 documents annually, right? They didn't start with AI, they didn't just plug that on top. They first kind of said, how can we improve on our process? You improve on that process, you digitize that process, and then you plug AI into then kind of get the insights you needed. And their result in this particular case was a 30% improvement in productivity, $5 million run rate savings, and critically then the humans kind of start to trust the process and kind of then help to redesign the process and get it better, right? Because you don't have that risk of saying, we're going to plug this in and you potentially are going to lose your job. Yeah. So maybe one kind of a little bit of advice across technology and risk and product owners is don't kind of meet separately, have your own AI strategies, and then try and come together. It's kind of like three architects designing different floors in a building and then hoping that they're going to fit together, right? So it's making sure that kind of you're sitting in the same room and you're playing the same song. The other analogy I like to use here is at the moment I think a lot of people are, one person's playing guitar over there, one person's playing a keyboard over there, but that doesn't make a band, right? You've got to come together, you've got to synthesize, and you've got to practice, and you've got to iterate together.
Yep, that sounds like my family environment with 3 children playing different instruments and then none of them playing any right tune. Thank you so much. Now, let's move then to what we really, as human beings, find this thing, where we find it a bit nebulous. You can have the most sophisticated AI stack in the industry and the most advanced models, the cleanest data pipelines, and still fail because people didn't adopt it. So people are central to the piece, I think. And that is the reality of many organizations and quietly living this reality at the moment. They've invested a lot, but they're not getting the ROI. So let us talk candidly about the human dimension of this transformation, right? So Meshack, how do you ensure employees actually adapt AI tools instead of resisting or quietly bypassing them in their daily work?
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
That's a very interesting question. The first time we talk about AI, the first question I get from one of my developers is, boss, are we going to lose our jobs? That's the first question, because they think AI is here to replace their jobs, and that's not the case. So as organizations, to kickstart the journey, it is very important that our employees understand the value of AI. That AI is here to simplify their jobs, the way they do their jobs. We must make AI part of their daily work, one. Two, we need to make sure the environment will support that journey. So we need to invest in enablement, procure licenses. We must invest in change management, because this is a very sensitive discussion where people think they're going to lose their jobs. And that's where you get the resistance. So you also need to invest in training, practical training, role-based use cases. Because like I work with developers. Developers, it's very easy to convince them they play around with tools all the time. But I've got BAs. If you start talking to BAs about AI, said no, but this is for developers. It's not the case. They must also use AI because they draft documents, PRSs and all that. So change management is very key, because while you're driving adoption, you need to remove obstacles. All the rumors that you hear around where companies are now saying, no, we're going to reduce budgets for audits because we can use AI. That's not the case. Whatever output that you get from AI, you still need human intervention to review the output. Is it correct? Is it appropriate before you can share with business? So it's a journey. You need an environment where adoption is supported and is expected.
Yeah, but I'm sure everyone that you'd be talking to, and some of us really would be thinking, in this ever-changing world, what skill must I have, to stay relevant? Because that is the skills anxiety that we have. But maybe you can tell us some practical skills that employees should start developing today to remain relevant and competitive in an AI-enabled workplace.
Okay, first things first. You need to build the right mix of skills around AI. You must understand what AI is, what AI can do. Two, you need to understand your data capability. As a developer, if I need to develop a solution and I don't understand the business requirements, how are you going to make sure the solution is correct? So you need to understand your data capability. Your human judgment must be on top, and adaptability. Also, you see, let's talk Copilot. You want to ask questions for Copilot to give you the answers. You need to know, you must ask the right questions. If you don't understand your data, you're not going to ask the right questions. And the answers you're going to get, you are not going to be able to analyze that information and make the correct judgment. So you need to understand AI tools, ask the right questions, but understand your business. Then you will be able to keep up with the AI chain.
So the old age giggle still goes on. Garbage in, garbage out.
That's the thing. If you ask the wrong question, AI is going to pull everything that it thinks you're looking for. And now you need to go through that and analyze. And it's like if you develop a solution, when it gets to testing, AI is going to throw out a lot of errors. If you don't understand your business, how are you going to debug that?
No, thanks. Now, let's elevate the conversation a bit. Because AI is not just on the ground floor, and it's not just a ground floor challenge. It is increasingly a boardroom and a C-suite too. And executives who master it will have a genuine competitive edge, I think. So, Khetha, how can AI support project management, reporting, and decision-making in for executives at their level and on a daily basis?
Yeah, thanks, Thabang. Good morning. I think when we when we look at, if I just take the executive part of that question, if you look at the typical executive, they are, they have time issue, time constrained. They either seeking certain information to make decisions, or have information, or on the opposite end of the scale, have information overwhelm, right, to make decisions. And so I think that artificial intelligence, whilst there's many wonderful esoteric views about how it can and could be deployed, I mean, I think there are also very, very practical implications that are, as you said earlier, it's here that we can apply now. So in terms of a time constraint, I mean, Alex mentioned it earlier on about we've got teams, you have a teams meeting, there's your summary in front of you. That's a practical application of using AI to assist us now, today, right? Same approach, if you're on a Microsoft suite, you can use Copilot for meeting preparation, right? So they've got a meeting coming up, help me, what are all the previous communications around this particular meeting, and help me prep in terms of that, and look at the sequencing of events, of prior discussion points, etc. So I think there are very practical implications in terms of supporting executives in time management. But equally on the...
Apparently, we are talking to ourselves. We need to project.
Oh, am I not?
Yes.
Okay. Am I audible now?
Including myself. So,
okay. All right.
So I'll start shouting now.
Right. I hope you got the first part of that. But equally, I think what we can do in terms of executive support is also in the information synthesis, right? Either getting AI to go and source information for us to be able to make decisions where we're lacking that information as executives. And alternatively, when there's information overwhelm, right? I mean, we've got all the wonderful dashboards and that we've got in our organizations, and the Power BI's platforms and the Click platforms, etc. But sometimes too much information is also a problem. And so we can take that, feed it into our AI tools, and help it synthesize that information so that we can distill what the key recommendations are. And then we, as the humans and executives, then still have to apply judgment. I think that we should never defer judgment to a tool. We understand the real world. We understand the history. We understand our intuition and gut feel. Just offsite, we were talking with Lelané, and she, we're talking about the gut feel of executives still resides with us as people. So the tool is there to aid us in decision making and helping manage our time. I mean, it's ironic that all these time management and time-saving tools that we've adopted in our organizations and personal lives, but I think increasingly people are feeling overwhelmed and feeling even more time-constrained than before. So let's use these tools to that.
Yeah.
The project management is also quite straightforward. I mean, we're running projects across the board. Getting project statuses, health status of the project, the tool can do that. Where the project is slipping, I think our AI tools can do that quite effectively. So I think there's opportunity that we can deploy these tools here and now. And this is not even a future use case scenario. This is what's available to us now.
But now we are in an age of AI washing, where every consultant comes and tells you, we've got this platform and it's got an AI solution. So how can we cut through all this noise and actually find what actually works? And but then maybe the question to ask you is, how can organizations identify AI use cases that are genuine and that have a genuine impact, and versus those driven purely by hype and market pressure?
As somebody who sets and reports to board, I'm in the constant receiving end of, have you deployed AI? What are you doing on AI? What's the new, what new AI tools are you doing? So are you putting to organization? So I'm on the receiving end of that question quite a bit. And my response is not exciting. My response is, we have a plan, we have a roadmap of what we're doing in the organization, and where applicable we'll use AI along that roadmap. So I think the question then, to answer you, the question I think to ask is not whether and how quickly we are deploying AI. I think the question to ask is how quickly we've identified our business objectives, our business pains, and is AI applicable in addressing those? And if the answer is yes, then great. Then the question goes, okay, well, how quickly are you then deploying to address that? So I think the starting point in all of this is a business requirement, is a business need, or a business opportunity that you want to tackle. And I think that it's easy to do as others are doing. And I look at, if Meshack is doing AI things, I need to jump onto the bandwagon because that's what Meshack is doing. That's what Gavin is doing in their environments. And so, as a banking finance institution, then I need to jump on board. So I think we need to be able to always ask the question. Yeah. The issue here, I think, is not a technology deployment issue. I think this is
what solution
do we need to apply?
Yeah. So you're saying AI is not the silver bullet for everything? Yeah.
It may be. The starting point is not about deploying AI. The starting point is about identifying the need.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Thank you so much. Now we go to the governance and strategy element of our discussion, right? Because of these questions that we have faced, right? They are not all just operational. They are also philosophical, and they also have an ethical tinge to them. We are now building these tools and we are using them in our businesses, and they are affecting the lives of the people. Lelané, as AI systems become more autonomous and agentic, where should organizations draw the line between human oversight and machine-led decision-making?
Thank you, Dr. Thabang. That's a very interesting question. And I want all of you to imagine your workplaces, your offices, where you are, and I want you to reflect on that question. Where do you draw the line? Between the human and the machine. Now, looking at my fellow panelists, I can confirm that none of us are hallucinating today. I didn't see us, we're thinking, the response is. So you need to be very mindful. The human being, the moment we start hallucinating when we work with our clients, your client will immediately say, listen, there's something wrong with you, maybe you need to take a duvet day. But if we then come back into AI, it's where that hallucination steps in. And I always say in our environment, my environment is financial services. We work very closely with National Treasury. And I'm sorry, National Treasury, that your AI policy was withdrawn because the AI, look at my colleague giggling, because the policy that they wrote is where AI started hallucinating, and the South African ex-CEO of Google picked it up because the research it quoted was wrong because it hallucinated. So our AI policy was withdrawn. But looking at the Financial Sector Conduct Authority, National Treasury, the Prudential Authority, there's a lot going on in that space at the moment. We'll see a lot of policies coming through. You'll even see in the budget speech, there was clearly mention made earlier this year that there will be a major focus on AI and how we use that. But I always say in our environment, you must be an AI. You must have AI in order to use AI. So what am I talking about? You must be an accountable institution in South Africa. We all know that we, thank goodness, are off the grey list now. because with the AML stepping in everything that we have, it's an accountable institution. But in my world, I always say, and hopefully everybody in the room has a certified financial planner or a financial advisor looking after your finances. And I always say, for a financial advisor to use AI, you need to have advisor intelligence before you use artificial intelligence, because you're not going to know the difference if you don't have that advisor intelligence. And I want to latch on to what you said around the skills. The skill set is vastly different that we need for today. You have to be extremely curious. Curiosity is good. But we also need to have common sense. And what I spoke about earlier on is that gut. That's the one thing that AI doesn't have. You know, it's that discernment that you are born with. That I know this is wrong, but I'm still going to use it. It's that discernment of knowing when something is wrong. So to circle back to your question, where does the difference lie? So if you work with AI, a lot of it is automated. And what is important here is understanding your big data. And that's sometimes a big swear word, but it's your big data. If your big data doesn't make sense, your agentic AI is going to get extremely confused, especially if you have a closed AI environment and you have an AI policy that says thou shall only use Claude or Copilot or whatever is allowed in your environment. And hopefully you already have an AI policy, because your biggest risk is not AI, it's the human being. It's the human being not knowing where the line is. And we need rules. We need rules to understand where that line is. So it's also where your biases comes in. Human beings, we have biases where we have a certain feeling towards something, or heuristics where we believe in the rule of thumb. So be careful of when AI steps in, what that bias is. And the other day we were having a conversation, I think it was with the Conduct Authority. Yes, the Conduct Authority explained the AI research that they've done. And what is very scary at the moment, you are seeing herd behavior. You know, human beings, we have herd behavior. We follow what investment decisions is being made. There's herd behavior, but there's herd behavior between the AIs at the moment as well. So be careful of that. So where the difference comes in is the human being is where judgment is. You still need to use judgment, the human being's knowledge, and you need to understand when AI is busy hallucinating. So I would not let the operator, the human being, get involved in things that's too automated, but I will not let AI get involved where there's emotions. You need to understand the human being, where there's judgment coming in, but definitely that bias is unique. But I'm going to round up with saying, know your own environment, because if you don't understand big data, AI will rewrite your history of your company for you and you won't even know it.
Yep. They will tell you that you were born in 1874 when you were born in 1974, and you believe it.
75.
So what does an AI-ready organization look like? And how, from an operational and cultural and leadership perspective?
Again, a beautiful question. Thank you, Dr. Thabang. So from an organizational point of view, I don't know, to be very honest with you, but I can tell you what my guesstimate is. The guesstimate is somebody that's hungry for change. You are ready for change, but you do it within a governance, very strong environment. You understand what your guardrails are. You know, we all heard about these guardrails. What is your guardrails in the organization? And are you very clear about what your risks are? And my question is, does everybody in your company know that? Because sometimes you'll find the leadership, I always say it flows down from the beard. If your leadership don't understand what the risks are, and that circles into the leadership question as well. You know, you need to understand what changes are happening. You need to have those curiosity, because if you don't have that, your competitors will be miles ahead of you. So it's not about not using AI and being scared of it. It's about using AI responsibly. It's about understanding your guardrails. It's about understanding the ethical dilemmas that we sometimes have of using AI. It's no different to those years when the internet came in. Everybody thought the internet was the mark of the beast. Remember all those years, I may be giving my age away here. It's no different with AI coming in. It's the ethical use of AI that still matters to today. It's that common sense. Common sense must prevail at all times. And then with your staff, if I can quickly circle back, you need to make sure that everybody understands your AI policy. Make sure that you provide for your staff across the company to learn. Everybody must learn about AI. Get a LinkedIn corporate account. Make sure everybody learns and stay curious.
Yeah, no. Thank you very much, Lelané. Amol, off to you now. With limited budgets, how should banks prioritize investments across AI, automation, and data initiatives? And what is the right sequencing?
Good morning, everyone. Thanks a lot, Dr. Thabang. Interesting questions. I mean, where I'm sitting on the panel, I am the only one who's going to bring the outside-in perspective. You all are practitioners. You're sitting in the organizations and delivering day in and day out. I hope I'm audible, right? We have been working with top financial services industry and companies in South Africa a little over 2 decades. And trust me, not a single year my discussion with my stakeholders, CIOs, in the point, is the year where they said, there's an open checkbook, don't worry, we can do everything that we want to. Never been. We work in a regulated industry and highly budget constrained industry. Now, considering that as a reality, what do? Should we spend all the money that is available on automation, on improving our data, or bringing in agentic AI or AI solutions? Actually, the answer is not that easy. It's very tricky also. So what do? I think one practical way that the organizations and my peers and stakeholders in the industry can use is, and Gavin did speak about this as well, is about how do we decide on the use cases? What is going to make maximum value? How does it deliver, or what delivers truly business outcomes that we've defined for? Now, a matrix that one uses is an outcomes-based matrix. Do I want to use and spend money on improving my top line? Do I want to use money to save money and bring in efficiencies by looking at the cost elements? How do I increase my market share by improving my customer experience? And or does this investment lead to reducing of the risks which are in the business environment? Now, this will pretty much give you an idea of where do you put your money, where do you want to invest. A very strategic investment sequence that we have seen organizations using is, do not jump onto AI, and Lelané, you did mention about it, is if you've not got your foundations right. Foundations like data, foundations of infrastructure. AI eats, feeds on data. Is your data ready? Is it been democratized? Have you built governance around the usage of data? And most importantly, regulators are asking for data, so which means that it's easy to justify the investments. Secondly, what do you automate? Automate repetitive processes. That's the easiest pick of all. Like mortgage operations, payments operations, automate them as much as you can. Automate first call resolution in the contact center. Right. Automate business processes, because that will then lead or feed into the AI investments that you make. Lastly, get the regulations right, get the governance right. No use case is going to add value if it does not fall within the guardrails and governance that have been set by regulators. We are a highly regulated industry.
And you lose your license. Just as the last question, and I'm seeing that we are really running out of time. What are the top AI concerns you are hearing from banking leaders today, and how have those concerns shifted over the past year?
Very, very interesting question, and I want to latch on to what Gavin was talking about. These are global numbers, right? Averages. 95 and upwards of 90% in ineffective usage of AI has been seen. Only 5 to 7% have led to enterprise-wide scaling of those. So pilots have been deployed by organizations across industries. But there are definite challenges that one sees in terms of scaling them across enterprises. What is happening is that our discussions with industry leaders in the past were all around exploring. What is the potential of AI? What can it do for us? But in the recent past, give it 6 months to 8 months, the discussions have been more centered around how do I make use of AI to deliver real, measurable, consistent, trusted business outcomes? Now, this is well said and done. Organizations, especially financial services organizations, have 4 key challenges. One, it's a heavily legacy-driven environment. The systems are not modernized as yet, and it will still take time, right? The core systems were built over many years and decades for that matter. So the integration of any new tool or technology is not easy. The IT systems are very fragmented. There's not one technology that spreads across the enterprise. So then again, the heterogeneousness of the environments creates challenges. Governance, while we all talk about governance, but there is no clear defined governance metrics as yet around the usage of AI. And lastly, even the regulators are thinking about building in those matrices that they can measure us on. They're asking for transparency. They're asking for data. So these are some of the challenges. What has happened over the last year is the pilots have been run, and some of them have actually gone into production and are delivering value. Some of these are usage of AI into predicting fraud, right? Usage of AI in credit decisioning. Somebody talked about onboarding of customers. Earlier used to take days. Today is happening within hours. Customer service first call resolution. Mundane queries can be answered by AI or agents.
Yeah.
Now, this also throws another angle into the equation, which is about the measurement of ROI. As it is, we are working in a limited budget situation. Now, CFOs are actually using not one but 2 magnifying glasses to measure the outcomes that were promised when a use case was approved.
Yeah.
Right? We've also heard and seen pretty much about what Uber did. They consumed all their IT budget in 1 quarter, let alone the entire year. So there are a lot of challenges there, but there are moments where organizations have really picked up the right use case, did a right ROI measurement around that, and have now industrialized it.
Well, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, in the past, how many minutes now? Is it 40 minutes or so? The panel has taken us on a remarkable journey. We have moved from measurable impact to human adoption, from regulatory tensions to executive readiness, and from governance of automations to the very real constraints of investing in these systems. And if there's one thread that I can see running through all this thing is that AI does not transform organizations. People do. AI does not build trust in institutions. Leaders do. And AI does not create culture. We all do. So the organizations that will win in the AI era are not necessarily the ones with the biggest models or the largest technological budgets or technology budgets. They are the ones with the clearest sense of purpose, the most honest culture of learning, and the courage to put humans at the center of every AI decision they make. So please, ladies and gentlemen, join me in thanking this exceptional panelists, Alex, Gavin, Meshack, Khetha, Lelané, and Amol. And if we still have moments, I think we can have a question or two. But let's give them a big round of applause. We have a couple of minutes, so I think we can take one question. Yeah. The boss says 1 minute, one question, sorry. Is there anyone wishing to quiz the panel? There's a hand right in front here. The microphone is rushing to you.
Thank you. Michael Jacobs here. I just want to pose to the panel, looking beyond the angst and apprehension of adopting AI, and considering a scenario whereby it is part and parcel of our BAU, how would an employer, manager, head, etc., evaluate the actual value that employees, the human aspect, bring in? Considering if everybody is using AI, how do you know that one individual is actually qualified for their position, is actually bringing in value, or is simply going on to ChatGPT and getting answers there? And with that, how do you then reward people? So if you find somebody who's a high performer all of a Sunday thanks to AI, does that person get the promotion?
Who wants to take it? Lelané, you want to take it?
I can add something quickly, and actually with something that somebody from Microsoft was saying yesterday, so Narina might hear this again. What's happening in, so I don't know the answer, first of all, because I think, again, we're all learning. But interestingly, what's happening in some organizations is we're effectively hiring avatars. And what I mean by that is it's not the AIs that we're hiring. People are looking for work, and they're using AI technology to make sure that their CV matches the job spec.
Yep.
When they go into the interview, they're making sure that they are answering the questions in the right approach to make sure that the answers are relevant. And when they go through the psychometrics, they're using AI to do the psychometrics. And then what happens is when they get into the job, they can't do it. I think that's more of a problem than people who are performing well in the organization who are going to perform better using AI.
Very high level, very quickly. The way I would do that, you can very clearly see if you're interviewing somebody. Let's take you interviewing for a job. Who do you choose? You can see they're reading from their screen. So please do not have, especially your final interviews where you test for company culture. You always have to test for company culture before you appoint. Have that in person. Sit across the person, all laptops down, all phones down. You make eye contact. Because you then very clearly, and I'm going to say that again, know if that human is hallucinating or not. So please go back to in-person, in contact, because there's always a screen between you and the person they are reading from their AI script.
Well, we're out of time. I just wish to thank you, and thank you everyone for your participation. And just remember that the future of work is not something that will happen to us. It is something we are building, and together, right now, in decisions that we are making, large or small, and let's make sure that we build it well. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the summit.